Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, the Cats shot 40+% from three, 49% from the field, and 80% from the free throw line, and scored 97 points, but still ultimately lost to Alabama, 102-97 on Saturday afternoon. Let's dive into it a little bit. What were some of your big takeaways from this game?
Yeah, well, on Saturday the Cats' defense was about as non-existent as our co-host here, Tyler. So we'll throw it out there.
Have to.
No, just I mean, it was a repeat of the Florida game, except we were on the other end in this one. I mentioned it in kind of the rapid recap. I thought the Cats did some things well. Obviously, shot the ball well, scored, ran really efficient offense until really like the last 5 minutes when it just felt like Alabama made every play they needed to make to close the game out, and Kentucky didn't. The game got tied at 81. From there, I felt like Bama just kind of dominated, and I know they only won by 5, but it felt like a little more down the stretch. But you know, the defensive deficiencies that we've talked about all year really, showcased against a high-powered Alabama offense.
Yeah, like we said, the offense was great in this game. I mean, just looking at the numbers in general, you scored 97 points. You're not expecting to lose too many of those games. 48% from the field, 41% from three. I mean, offensively, we couldn't have drawn it up much better than that. Really, I think it just kind of came down to they had a guy that they could go to end the game in Mark Sears. And Grant Nelson obviously got off to that very hot start. They had the best two players on the floor, and I think that kind of just won them the game down the stretch.
Yeah, to your point, we talked a lot about we need a guy on this team that can kind of get you buckets down the stretch. We saw some signs where it could have been Jackson Robinson. We've seen some games where it could have been Ortega. I thought Ortega was great, especially late in the second half. I mean, without him, you're getting ran out of the gym. But, you know, Marcus Spears just took over the game down the stretch, and Kentucky didn't have an answer. And you kind of just see what happens when there's two really high-powered offenses, but one of them's just got a dude. And Spears is a dude, and he went out and took it over down the stretch.
Yeah, Mark Sears had 24 points and 9 assists. Wasn't very efficient from the floor, 6 of 17 shooting, but was 8 of 9 from the free throw line. And free throws told a big story in this game. Alabama got to the line, shot 34 free throws, Kentucky only 20. And between the two of them, Grant Nelson and Mark Sears shot a combined 19 and went 17 of 19. So there was ultimately the difference in the game. Just those two being so efficient from the line. I think Nelson coming into the game was shooting, and I think it was like 67%, and he goes 9 for 10. Just there's a difference in the ball game.
Yeah, and I mean he was phenomenal, especially in the first half. Had 19 at halftime or whatever it was that he had. You know, we've seen it. A stretch four that is really good is going to give this team issues. I thought it was two fairly evenly matched teams. It's just Bama probably does have the two better players, the two best players on the floor, and those guys came into Rupp and played to that ability. Andrew Carr couldn't guard Grant Nelson. When he did, he was getting called for a foul. Part of it was he never really had a chance to get into rhythm, but Grant Nelson in that first half got anything and everything he wanted, and you saw them trying so many different things to try to slow him down, and there just was no slowing him down in that first half.
Yeah, they tried a lot. They even went once Grant Nelson was killing him. I mean, Andrew Carr only played 18 minutes in this game. You can tell he's still bothered by that back injury. 4 fouls in that 18 minutes. We flipped to a 1-3-1 defense after Grant Nelson started killing us, and that's what really allowed Mark Sears to get going. I had texted you during the game. I didn't like that decision. Obviously, you want to try some things because, Grant Nelson was scoring at will. I feel like we did stay in that 1-3-1 defense a little too long, and it allowed Sears to get going, which ultimately I think is what allowed us to lose the game at the end because Sears was getting more and more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, hindsight's 2020. The zone wasn't the best choice, but when you're in that kind of situation, I think Pope's just trying whatever he can, right, to figure it out. I mean, you gave up 102, you gave up 40, whatever in the first half. You can't stop Grant Nelson. you try something else. But it was really similar to the Gonzaga game, if you remember, when EK's killing Kentucky, and then they switched to the 1-3-1. The difference in that game was the point guard. I'm blanking on his name now, but
Nimhard.
Nembhard. Yeah, he missed a couple threes and then didn't want to shoot. Mark Spears is the opposite. If you're going under on a ball screen in a 1-3-1 zone, he's going to rise up and knock it down, and we saw it time and time again.
Yeah, and just that switch in the game, I think, is kind of what propelled them going forward, especially down the stretch. Let's go ahead and talk about how some of the Cats played in this game. Let's go ahead and we already mentioned Andrew Carr in this game. Only played 18 minutes, had 4 fouls. Was really just a non-factor. Felt like he really wasn't giving you much in those 18 minutes. Had 4 points, only 1 rebound in the 18 minutes and 4 fouls. How much do you think that back is bothering? Because as you can see, he hasn't played much the past couple games. And even, he's limited athletically as is. It just looked like he couldn't even move on the floor.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that's very thankful for this, week in, week by, or whatever that they want to call it. Going Saturday to Saturday without having to play. But one, I do think the back was bothering him a little bit too. I mean, he was in foul trouble from early. He picked up his second foul very early in the first half. Pope went back to him. He picks up a third in the first half, and then had his fourth with like 16 minutes to go in the game. I mean, he could just never, even playing 18 minutes, it was never out like he was out there getting an extensive run and really getting into the rhythm of a game. He's the kind of guy that it does feel like he really has to find his rhythm in the game. I think any game that he gets into early foul trouble and is going to the bench and only able to play, 3 to 4 minute stretches, that's just going to be something that kills him, especially on the offensive side. It doesn't seem like he can really get into the flow of the game.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that it seems like his confidence that he gets on the offensive side of the ball, it does allow him to play a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. And without being able to, play consistent minutes in this game because of foul trouble, he was just never able to get that rhythm going either end of the floor. And you saw that with how badly Grant Nelson was killing Kentucky in the first half. Like you said, 19 points in the first half. Let's go ahead and talk about Amari Williams. Amari had 13 points in this game. He ended up fouling out a little bit later. 13 points, 11 rebounds on 5 of 11 shooting. Only 3 of 6 from the free throw line, but I think that's kind of what you expect from Amari Williams. You're really not expecting him to knock down as many free throws as you'd like. The real telling, stat in this, he did have 4 turnovers, unfortunately. Like we said, with the system that we run, he's going to turn the ball over more than your typical 5-man will. But minus 15 on the plus-minus tells a little bit of a story in this game.
Yeah, I actually thought, again, it was one of Amari's better games.
I thought he played well as well. But
he he has really kind of flipped the switch from that Ohio State game, and with conference play, he's really kind of turned it on. I thought he was huge, not just obviously the 13 points, but grabbing rebounds, 5 on the offensive side, and he was a guy that was just bringing a ton of energy. Like, there were so many times where it felt like Kentucky needed to make a run, and they would, and it would usually start by either Amari ripping a rebound from somebody's hands, or just kind of making an energy play. And that's something we really wanted to see from him, especially early in the non-conference. And he's really starting to come into his own. The 4 turnovers, like, to your point, like, I'm just kind of growing to expect it. I said before, the reason he frustrated me wasn't because he tried to do too much at times. Like, that just is who he is. It was the energy, and I feel like as of late it's been much better, and I think you're seeing it. He's getting double-digit rebounds or close to it just about every night out, and I don't know the exact number, but it feels like he's had a lot of double-doubles lately. He's really kind of flipped the switch for me, and I'm starting to come over to your side on really liking Amari and liking what we've seen from him.
Yeah, I texted you before the game. I think Amari's becoming my favorite player just because I think he was the one who was maybe not as criticized as Jackson Robinson was towards the middle of the season, but earlier in the season, it just seemed like every sort of talking source that was talking about Kentucky basketball had something negative to say about Amari Williams. And he's responded, like you said. I think he's had double-doubles in both of the last 2 games. And I think the one right before that, the Georgia game, he was in foul trouble that game, really couldn't find the whistle. But you're starting to see the effort tick up and tick up, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think each of the last 3 games he's had 2+ blocks in each of those games, and he's pulling down the rebounds. This is the guy that we signed out of the portal. This is the guy that we got from Drexel, the guy that we were expecting to be, our 5-man, our stopper defensively. And it's great to see now because especially, he might not be able to guard a guy like Grant Nelson, but that's not your typical 5-man that you're going to see week in, week out in the SEC. And I think if we do have this Amari Williams going forward, as long as, we're not giving up 102, I think we're going to win a lot of these games.
Yeah, and like I said, just for me, it's all energy, and it's been so much better lately. But, we talked after the last game, and I said, like, if you're getting that kind of effort from Amari and you're getting, obviously I don't think Jackson played like his best game, but you're getting those kind of games from like Jackson Robinson, like those two are the difference makers, I think, for this season long term.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, let's talk about the difference maker in this game. You mentioned him a little bit earlier. How about Otega Owe on the offensive side of the ball? I got a little bone to pick with him on the defensive side of the ball, but let's talk about how good he was on the offensive side first. 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals on 8 of 14 shooting and 4 of 5 from the line. I mean, Otega really there for a solid stretch in the second half was your only offense, and he was keeping us in the game. Without him, this might be a double-digit win for the Crimson Tide. What do you think about Otega Owe on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. He was obviously, I think, for that stretch in the second half, the only reason you're in the game. And, he really made the push there to get it tied at 81. He's hitting a couple nice little mid-range jumpers. Hit a big 3 when we needed it. I thought he was excellent. Again, obviously, defensive side wasn't great, but give up 102. I don't know if you can say anybody was. But yeah, Otega's just doing what we've kind of seen all year, just being that consistent scorer, and when you need a bucket, he'll either get to the rim, or I'm starting to really like that mid-range jumper when he's shooting that too.
Yeah, if you had told me sometime last year that we'd like seeing a mid-range jump shot, I would have been furious at what you're saying. But
it's like anything else, it's just yeah, it's just in moderation we'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, we're going to be nitpicky here. Like you said, we allowed 102 points, so obviously nobody was good on the defensive end. But this team in ball screen defense, I mean, Coach Pope brought it up a little earlier in the season. I don't think it's gotten any better at all. And like we've mentioned it, in passing, we don't expect this team to get a lot better defensively. But ball screens are a huge role in college basketball. And if we can't stop just simple ball screens, Otega Owe in specifics was horrendous at guarding ball screens in this game. That's when Mark Sears really got going. They would switch on to Otega, even Jackson Robinson a little bit in this game. And as soon as they did, I mean, I don't know if it was more of a communication problem with whoever the rolling big was at that time, but they just could never get it figured out. And I think the ball screen defense is why they lost this game.
Yeah, I would like to see them not switch as much. It feels like, we're eager to switch it. I would just like to see, especially, Lamont Butler and Otega, these guards, just fight through that. Don't go underneath and fight through. I mean, you've seen the inconsistency in SEC refs, right? Like, if you fight through it and you and the big man fall down, there's a good chance they're going to call an offensive foul even. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's more of like a, game planning issue of like what they want to do with ball screen D, but I agree with you. It's obviously not good, but, I would like to see them try to fight through and, stay with their man rather than switching everything.
Yeah, man, we gotta try something. Like you said, giving up 102. Obviously, not much was going right. Especially, I mean, we're gonna get into it. I think you think it's a little bit of a hot take. I don't necessarily agree as much. I think most people will agree on your side, but I do think the preseason notions of players do carry over into the regular season, no matter what they've shown you so far. And I hear podcast in, podcast out on the broadcast, Jay Billis, whoever it is, Jimmy Dykes, talk about how elite of a defender Lamont Butler is. And at times he is. He's an elite defender when he is actually, I don't want to say putting forward effort, but at the same time, we were on Amari Williams' case earlier in the season for not giving effort 24/7. How many times do you see Lamont Butler steadily get behind somebody in a ball screen where he tries to go for a back tap? Sometimes he gets them and it works. but most times it doesn't. And he's putting guys like Amari Williams, Brandon Garrison, or Andrew Carr in non-advantageous spots. And that's where it ends up looking like, oh man, BG or Amari aren't doing their work.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I do think Lamont Butler's a really good defender. I think there's a big difference between, effort, like we talked about with Amari or whoever else throughout the year, versus like aggressiveness. And to your point, like, yeah, maybe he's letting the guy get a step on him, but he's almost doing it from the perspective of, I'm going to let him get a step and pick the ball from behind. Now, is that always going to work? No. Is that the smartest way to play defense every time? Probably not. But, I mean, it's the same way as, like, if you see a quarterback that's going to go out there and throw some interceptions and be a gunslinger, like, the guy's going to take his chances. We're used to guys taking chances on the offensive side, whether it's hoisting up a three or, whatever, a heat check. His was more so trying to get that, pick that ball away. And to your point, yeah, he might let a guy go past him, and he probably does it a little too much, just trying to get greedy and get that steal. But I don't think it's like an effort thing.
Yeah. And, I hear what you're saying. It might be, going on each other's sides here a little bit. But, I mean, let's ask Cam Taylor-Britt of the Cincinnati Bengals how that worked out for him this year. I mean, sometimes you just got to play steady, solid defense. And especially with a team like this that is so – there's times to pick your aggressiveness. And I feel like he's just not doing it at the right times. Like, I understand he is our best defender. It's not close. I mean, Amari Williams is probably second on the team. But we need him to be that reliable, possession in, possession out defender. I don't need, one pick every 5 possessions, like that. I just think he needs to pick his spots better.
Yeah. No, and I agree, but like it also may just be the case, like obviously, like, Pope's not stupid and these coaches aren't stupid. Like they know this team's not a good defensive team, right? So I'm sure part of it is they're preaching like we got to find a way to generate turnovers. Like, getting in the half court trying to guard someone out for a full 30 seconds is not going to be this team's strength, right? So you got to try to speed teams up, and maybe Lamont does it a little more because he's hearing what the coaches are saying and understanding that this team's not great, man to man for 30 seconds, and he's trying to get a little too aggressive and force those turnovers. But I mean, to your point, I do think he probably does it a little too much, but I just wonder how much that is almost by design just because of how poor this team is defensively.
Yeah, and I hear that. And that's obviously something we're never going to know unless Pope were to come out and say something like that to defend Lamont. Obviously, we're not behind those closed doors to see, what they are teaching. And from what you're saying, it doesn't make a lot of sense just based on, in the half court, we're not getting many stops against just about anybody. So taking those chances every now and again does make a little bit of sense. Let's go ahead and talk about Lamont on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, did have 8 assists in this game, 17 points. Was a little inefficient, 6 of 14 from the floor and 2 of 5 from 3, which, don't get me wrong, I'll take the 2 of 5 from 3 from Lamont.
Yeah.
But good on the offense side of the ball. I'm not sure what he was doing the last 5 minutes of the game, just in general, offense and defense. That's a whole nother topic, but I don't want to seem like I'm crushing the guy. So I'll let you go ahead and dive into that.
Yeah, I thought he played well, obviously, offensively. Probably his best game on that side of the ball since Louisville. 17 points, 8 assists. I think it's kind of hard to argue that he was much better. He's still, I know we've mentioned it a bunch of times, but still blowing some easy layups at the rim. I don't know what it's going to take to. He makes a lot of difficult ones, but misses some bunnies. So I don't know, but none of these guys are good finishers. I feel like besides Ortega. Meant to mention it when we were talking about Ortega real quick, not to backtrack, but how about that play where he, they miss the shot and he waits and gets the steal and the and one. I mean, that was huge momentum play. Felt like that needed to be said on here, but yeah, I would love to see Lamont start to finish some layups.
Yeah, especially I feel like Lamont makes it so much tougher on himself half the time too. He'll get down there and he's very quick with the ball, even though his body type might tell a different story. He's very quick with the ball in his hands, and he's probably just in general our best driver. He just can't finish down low. I want him just to go up on first.
Yeah.
Everyone is a pump fake, and sometimes it results in him getting fouled and getting to the line. and we do need to get to the line more as a team. It's something that Coach Pope brought up as well. But I would love for him to see, just take it to the lane and go up and finish. Because at the least, you're going to draw a second defender, draw a big, and then you're going to leave time for maybe Amari Williams or Brandon Garrison to get that offensive rebound. And I think that'll allow lanes for those guys to be able to be, like we saw Amari get 5 offensive rebounds in this game. I think it'll help out a lot if we can stop with the 15 shot fakes underneath. Because guess what? When you're 6 foot tall and, you're going against a guy like Grant Nelson who's almost 7 feet, he's not really worried about your pump fakes down low that much.
Yeah, it's almost like, to your point of how quick he is, he's almost too quick for himself. He can't get his body caught up to where kind of he's at when he's going up for the layup. But yeah, and then the pump fakes, we talked about it with Lamont under the basket. We talked about it with Brea on the perimeter. Sometimes it's like, just shoot the ball. So I agree completely.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and let's dive into Jackson Robinson. I have no problem with this game from Jackson Robinson. Obviously, we would like to see more from him. But the part that I have a little bit of issue with is he gave you nothing outside of scoring his 11 points. He had 1 rebound, 1 turnover, no assists, no steals, nothing outside of just scoring. And he was obviously, like we keep mentioning, everybody was a liability defensively in this game. But they were attacking him in ball screens as well with Sears and Grant Nelson. What do you think about this game from Jackson Robinson?
Yeah, obviously after the last couple games he's played, it didn't live up to that. But I don't know. There were a couple times where I felt like he forced a 3 outside of the offense where it was kind of a killer. There were a couple where we would finally get a big stop, and it felt like we were pushing the ball out, and he's pulling it from 4 feet behind the 3-point line in transition. I didn't love those. I'm not going to kill the kid for his aggressiveness. When he's on, he's on. But, it felt like there were a couple times where there were some big misses from him. In regards to the rebounds, there weren't a ton of rebounds grabbed in this. Bama obviously scored 102 and shot a lot of free throws and shot the ball well. So, that's part of it. You have, obviously, Amari with 11 and, some other guys with, Otega with 6. I just don't know how many were out there to kind of grab. But, defensively, he obviously gave you nothing. And then, to your point, just 4 of 10 from shooting. I don't feel like it's like the worst game he's played, but I'm not going to, it's not going to be a game that's going to be shown at the end of the season when he's trying to build his draft stock, that's for sure.
Yeah, and obviously Jackson deserves a little bit of an off game from how he started in SEC competition, especially, lately. Let's go ahead and talk about somebody who actually had been struggling in SEC play, Kobe Brea. Shot the ball well in this game, 2 of 3 from 3. That was good to see. 4 of 7 from the floor. 10 points, managed to grab you 2 rebounds as well, and a steal in this game. I thought Kobe Brea was solid in this game. This is kind of like, this is the baseline of what I want Kobe Brea to be. I want him to at least be that 10 points per game, hit a couple threes, grab a couple boards. Obviously, I want him to have the game he had against Florida every time. Obviously, that's not going to happen every game, but this is kind of the baseline that I'd like to see for Kobe Brea for us to be, that next level team that I think we could be.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of like a bittersweet thing of one, I was super happy to finally see him shoot the ball better. But 2, I was like, shoot it more. I was back to where we were, obviously, a lot in the earlier parts of the year. But honestly, man, I don't care if the guy goes 2 of 7 or 5 of 7. I feel like he's got to shoot 6 to 8 threes a game. He's got to have a quicker trigger. And only shooting 3 in this kind of game where it's up and down the floor and you're getting a ton of shots off, there's no excuse for him to only take 3 threes.
Yeah, and they were really running him off the 3-point line. I think you kind of see that based on how he shot 4 shots inside the paint as well, which is not something you normally see from him. But I do agree with you. I think that was the magic number that we had said, early in the SEC play was we want to see him at the least have 6 to 7 threes per game, especially a game like this where there's 199 points scored between the 2 teams. You want to see him get up more than 3 threes, especially when Jackson shoots 7 of them and Lamont shoots 5. If anybody's going to shoot 5 or 7 threes, you want it to be Kobe Brea.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm never going to complain if Kobe goes out there and shoots 2 of 7 or 2 of 8 from the 3-point line. Like, you know, I know that the numbers are going to even out, and I just want him to shoot those as much as possible. So,
especially if they're in the flow of the offense. That's kind of something you brought up with Jackson Robinson. I love when he is aggressive, but it seems like when he's aggressive, it's outside the flow of the offense. As long as everything's within the flow of the offense, I'm not going to get mad if a guy goes 2 for 8. Obviously, everybody has their off night shooting the ball. And usually for Kobe Bryant, off night shooting is going 3 for 8 from 3.
yep.
So I'll sign up for that. Somebody I thought was very good in this game, Brandon Garrison, 11 points in 18 minutes, 6 rebounds, 5 assists from the big man. I thought he played really well in this game.
He did, and there were some times we saw him and Amari kind of get some run together.
I loved it. I loved it.
I'm not going to say I
loved
loved it after criticizing the last coach for constantly playing 2 big men, but I thought in this game you kind of needed it. Carr obviously in foul trouble the whole first half, and even into the second half, picking up his 4th so early. So I'm not going to say, I understand why it happened in this game, and I thought they played well together. To your point, I thought Garrison played really well. It's weird because every player, I feel like we're going down the list, we're like, they played well, and then we're sitting here talking about a loss. But I guess that's what happens when you give up 102 points. But, yeah, BG, he's another guy, man. I just, I don't really care about his stat line at the end outside of maybe rebounds. I just want him to, play with a lot of energy, and I felt like he did that in this game. So I was very happy with what I saw from him.
Okay, so I've got a question for you then.
All right.
Brandon Garrison and Amari Williams on the floor. What is the difference between having those two on the floor at the same time versus having Amari and Andrew Carr at the same time? You've seen Brandon Garrison's ability to shoot. He doesn't shoot as much as Andrew Carr does. He's better on the defensive side of the ball. Granted, I mean, he's been a better passer so far this year as well. The only thing is he's just not that reliable, 5th-year senior. That's the only thing I can think of for why those two can't play at the same time, but Amari and Andrew always can.
I think Carr is much further along offensively. I think his ability to spread the floor out. I know Garrison's shooting okay, but teams still aren't respecting him from out there. And you'll see him, he'll get it, and he stands there for a second and decides if he wants to shoot it. I mean, there's still a lot of open shots that he's not taking. And I know when he has shot them, he's made a few. But, I mean, if you're an opposing coach and you're game planning for Kentucky, it's a lot easier to leave Brandon Garrison out on the perimeter versus Andrew Carr in the corner or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like I agree to disagree there because, during the earlier parts of the season and even recently, we were talking about how hesitant Andrew Carr was to shoot those, and he hasn't been shooting as much as we would like. Even in this game, I mean, in 14 minutes, he only managed to get up 1 3 and is 1 for 4 from the field. I get the thought process of what you're saying. I think Andrew Carr has a better down low presence this far into his college career. I just don't think on the perimeter there's that much of a difference between the two.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think Carr's ability, to play in the post, offensively, I think he's much further along than Garrison, but we can agree to disagree a little bit. We haven't had too many disagreements yet this season, so this can be one of the few.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about how about Kentucky's own Travis Perry in this game. Obviously, he's 0 for 2 from 3 in this game. I really feel like those threes were killer too, man. He was wide open with those. You really want to see those start to fall, especially if he is going to be as much of a liability, just like I keep saying with almost everybody on this team on the defensive side of the ball. He's got to be able to knock down those open threes. But in 7 minutes, 0 points, 2 assists, 1 turnover. What do you think of Travis Perry's night?
Obviously, not a good night for him by any stretch. This was just one of those games where this is just one of those teams and one of those styles. It's going to be hard for him to play, man. Especially to your point, if he's not knocking down shots. There's not a guy out there that he can even remotely guard. I know nobody played great defense, but you might as well just put a trash can out there with the way these guys were able to go after him. And again, it's not anything, bad to say about Travis Perry. He's a true freshman. we're not used to true freshmen, in this league. We look at what Cal brought in and think every freshman's a, 5-star elite level athlete. And he's just, I still feel like he's getting better each game. I know this wasn't his best game. He's going to continue to have some big moments like he did in, the Mississippi State game and A&M making some shots when we need it. But this just wasn't his night, and it's just a tough team for him to match up against as a true freshman.
Yeah, I was having nightmares seeing Sears and Grant Nelson in a pick and roll with Thomas Perry out there guarding them. I almost had to turn the TV off. I was getting scared for my own well-being at that point. But like you said, Travis, we're not used to the freshmen that come in who aren't like uber athletic and uber talented.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has to work and grind to get to, where we want him to be, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Well, it's obviously he's been thrust into the action with the Kirk Kriisa injury. Obviously, we probably weren't expecting to play him as much as he has so far this season. I do think he is growing game after game, like you mentioned. But, going with that transition there, and speaking of growing game after game, what about Ansley Almanor? Again, in this game, I thought he was very good. 10 points, 3 rebounds on 2 of 4 shooting, 2 of 4 from the 3-point line, and 2 of 4 from the 3-point line, and 4 of 4 from the free throw line. 10 points in total. I love what Ansley's given you. Obviously, not a great defender. Nobody on this team really is. But if he's going to give you that offensively, 10 points, 3 rebounds in 19 minutes every game, sign me up for that.
Yep, people are going to get tired of hearing me say it, but I'm going to continue to say it. I mean, the guy is just impressed me in SEC play. I didn't think he would be able to, play in this league with the athleticism and, to your point, yeah, he's not the greatest defender, but nobody on this team is. But he's a guy that's giving you a lot, and there's times where he's hitting big shots or getting a big rebound. He's just a guy that might only go out there and play 15 minutes. I played 19 in this one, but like when he's out there, he's gonna make big plays for you and contribute.
Yeah, contributing is something that he's done. One thing I do need to see him do, he did it a couple games ago. He's got to fall on some of those threes, man. He had somebody land right next to him on one of the threes that he missed in this game. And, we're getting called for those nonstop fouls on the defensive side of the ball on the 3-point line specifically. I mean, man, I hate to say it. You got to flop. You got to.
I mean, they've shown they're going to call it. I don't know if you saw where Pope was talking about. They've really kind of started practicing what they think they can get some calls on, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little more falling down when you take a 3, because I mean, to your point, they're calling it. They're going to call it, and yeah, if somebody lands near you, Almanor, please just fall down. I mean, you're not stopping anybody anyway, so like just let them. If they don't call it and they get the run out and they get back, whatever. You're not making a defensive stop right now anyway, so just fall down.
It's so weird. I feel like SEC refs in previous years would always let the teams play a little bit more physical. It seems like the league's almost kind of done a little bit of like a 180 so far this year and how many fouls they call. So far, it's really, personally, I don't like it just because, it turns into a free throw match, and so far we haven't been that great from the free throw line. I don't know what you're thinking about SEC officiating in general. I really don't think it's like gypped us any games or anything like that. But go ahead and sound off on anything you got.
Man, I wasn't going to do it, but now you got me worked up. Now we're talking about it. But I don't think, don't get me wrong, I don't think the refs have cost us a game yet. But my God, are they inconsistent, and they always have been. And, to your point, games are taking 2 hours and 40 minutes. Like, it's absurd. It's a ton of free throws. It's a ton of inconsistencies. We saw it in this game. At one point in the second half, Kentucky had 8 fouls to Bama's 1, and then all of a sudden they were calling everything on Bama, and a lot of it was nonsense. They called that one on Sears, or not Sears, the other guard, when he was guarding Brea and said he was in a cylinder. He didn't even touch him. Nate Oates was about ready to lose his mind, and I can't blame him. It was pathetic. That Arkansas game last night, the officiating was awful. It's awful in every game that I've watched of SEC, whether Kentucky's playing or not. It's brutal.
Yeah, it's really drawn every game out, especially like you said. Games that you thought were usually sometimes you get done with games in like an hour and 50 minutes, even like 2 hours was usually that like cutoff time. If we got a game under 2 hours and 20 minutes, I'd be impressed so far with how the officiating's been. And Saturday we'll be watching the game together, and I need that game to go quick. I can't spend that much time with you. Your takes will drive me crazy
Oh
throughout
my God,
the day.
here we go.
So I got to get in there and get out, get the Cats a win. Obviously Vandy's playing some good basketball. 15-4 coming into this game. They just lost Alabama, got rolled pretty well in that game, but did just beat Tennessee the prior game. Got any takes on the Vanderbilt Commodores?
Yeah, we'll get in. Real quick, maybe to your point though, the only people that like the SEC officials are all the bars in the area. They get to, cash in on it. People got to buy that extra bucket to get through
Yeah.
that extra 40 minutes. um, yeah, I mean, Vandy just beat Tennessee. I watched, most of that game while the NFL playoffs were on when I had everybody over for the kid's birthday. So I watched a lot of it. They looked good, but then to your point, got rolled by Bama. I think I expect Kentucky to play pretty well. The thing is, like, if Kentucky's scoring, Vandy doesn't have the offense to keep up with Kentucky. This ain't going to be a game where, like Bama, they can go out and score 102. If Kentucky's scoring in the night, high 80s, low 90s, it's a wrap. I don't think Vandy can get up over that 84 mark or 85 mark.
You just can't have the game like Clemson and Georgia. You basically just can't play like that. Just play your brand of basketball. I even think high 80s wins this game. I don't think Vandy's going to be able. I mean, they're averaging 82 points per game. I think if Kentucky scores anywhere north of 86 in this game, they're going to win it. I mean, Vandy, they got some good players, obviously. Jason Edwards is scoring over 17 a game. And then Devin McLaughlin, their big guy, 10.7 per game and 8.2 rebounds. That'll be something to look out for because he actually shoots the ball pretty well from three. He's shooting 37% from three. Hopefully, we just saw what Grant Nelson did to us, a big who can kind of stretch the floor and shoot. Hopefully, we're ready for Devin McLaughlin.
Yep. Andrew Carr better be ready. You're going to have to defend the four, but I still think, to your point, as long as it doesn't get to that, Clemson, Ohio State, just getting beat up and, not being ready for the physicality. If Kentucky plays their style of basketball, I mean, I think we can run them out of the gym and it not even be close.
With how many SEC tournaments I've been to in Nashville, there's so many more Kentucky fans that make that trip than there will be Vandy fans. That'll be a home game for the Cats. I've seen ticket prices for that game were actually pretty high now that Vandy basketball is a little bit back. Obviously, they're not back to, early 2012s like when they beat us for the SEC championship. Thankfully, they did. I still think that's what got us to win the national championship.
Oh, come on. Here we go.
A little extra motivation never hurts. That's all I'm going to say.
When you got Anthony Davis, I don't know if much matters.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Vandy also, outside of Tennessee, it's not like they've really beaten anybody good. I mean, their next best win's probably Seton Hall or LSU. So, like, it's not like this is some really good team just because they're 15-4 and beat Tennessee. Obviously, you play who you play, but, smoked by Bama and, some other bad losses in there. They lost to Drake by 11, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they really took that non-conference schedule that they had and ran with it, got off to an early. I think they started the season 12-1.
Yep.
And obviously since SEC play has started, they've started to come back down to earth a little bit. Let's go ahead and get into our predictions. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans there. I wish I was one of them. I was thinking about making the drive. Tickets are a little too expensive for me.
I know. I saw that. That's crazy.
MVP pick, score prediction.
Oh, man.
Start off with whichever one you want. Go for it.
All right. You always make me go first. This time, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pick the Cats to play really well and kind of roll. I'll say we score a lot. I'll go 92-74. Kind of a cruiser. We'll be at Max Pizza over by NKU, so come out and join us. But I think it's gonna be one where the second half we're just gonna be having some drinks and laughing and enjoying it. I'll say an Andrew Carr bounce back game. This is the kind of game he can play in. A week to get the back right. Hasn't had to play anybody since Saturday. He gets healthy. goes out, plays well.
Yeah, I'm giving you plus odds on the Andrew Carr MVP pick. I'm giving you some good odds on that one. I kind of see the game similar to you as well. I think if Kentucky plays, the pace of play that they're
That's not good. That means we're wrong.
yeah, usually it means we're wrong, but hopefully not in this one. I think they, like you've mentioned, they can't score with us if we're scoring like we should. As long as it's, like you said, not the Clemson and Georgia game, as long as it's not that performance on the offensive side of the ball,
Yep.
I think Kentucky will win pretty easily in this game. I got them at 95 to 81, so I think we get close to that 100 mark again. I do think we still allow Vandy to score about their average, but at this point in time, I think we let everybody score a little bit more than their average, so this would be nice to see. Nice little change of pace.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and take chalk again here, man. I mean, it's really just an easy pick. You know he's going to give you at least like 15 every game and 5 rebounds and a couple assists. Go ahead and give me Otega Owe because I'm not sure if I see – it's hard to shoot in that building. They got the weird depth perception there. They got the elevated floor. It's a weird little – I mean, it's just kind of – or not the elevated floor, but they got the back where the rows are on the back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a weird place. Vandy does everything backwards. Their football program finally gets one big win, and all of a sudden, here, Vandy. No. Vandy's not that. They got a baseball program, and that's it. Kentucky goes in and rolls. Otega always the MVP. You got anything else?
Yeah. Real quick, can we talk about a little difference in coaching? Pope said he was practicing this week with the players sitting behind the hoop and him standing back there, like trying to get used to it. So, I don't know if the last guy in Lexington was doing that much attention to detail. Can Arkansas pop champagne for their first conference win?
Hey, I can't make fun of Arkansas after we just lost on Saturday. I can't do it on a loss. When we beat Vandy on Saturday and Arkansas loses on Saturday, then we can go back to that topic. But I'm gonna wait a little bit just because I like Adu. Adu played well. He's the one who ended up winning them that game. I cheer for Adu. Everybody else, not necessarily.
Can I comment on that for a second? Because I'm seeing a ton of UK fans talk about how they feel sorry for Z and Adu and this and that. I'm sorry. Did John Calipari tie them up and take him to Arkansas with him, or did they decide to go on their own free will? What are we doing here? At the end of the day, they play for a team that's not Kentucky. They chose to go to another SEC rival. I don't know. Just we gotta pump the brakes on, just because they were here. Jesus. I mean, I don't care who it is. If somebody goes to Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisville, or Duke, we should hate them.
See, to a certain extent, I get what you're saying,
dude. If my mother showed up in an Arkansas jersey, I would boo her.
I don't feel bad for any of them. They all made their decision. There's no crying on the yacht. They're all getting paid. Anybody who feels bad for John Calipari, I don't want to call you an idiot, but I'm going to call you an idiot. This guy's making millions and millions of dollars. You think he felt bad when he lost to Oakland last year in the first round of the tournament? No, he didn't care. He was still getting that paycheck at the end of the day. The only guy who I have, a little bit of sympathy for is Adu. I could care less about Z. Z, we did all the work to try and get him up on, his academic side to get him eligible for this. I don't even know how the university did it because we literally got him in the middle of November. That doesn't happen anywhere else. Yeah. We did a lot for him, and he still decided to leave. Z can leave. DJ Wagner was a bust. John Calipari sucks. Chin Coleman's an idiot. I do like Kenny Payne, even though,
worst staff in America.
He screwed over the University of Louisville for us, and I still think he did that for us.
I don't know. You watch how he is at Arkansas, and I just it ain't the same guy that was here in 2015, 14.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same guy. He's been able to collect a lot more and a lot, higher grossing paychecks since then.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten to the guy I dislike most on the Arkansas staff. Brad Calipari. I mean, come on. What are we waiting for? How long are we going to wait until we mention that one?
Yeah, it's bad. I know we're getting kind of long here, but there are two more things I want to get our thoughts on. First, Saturday's loss. Does it affect how you feel about the season at all? Overall?
It does to a certain degree. I do feel like if we play teams that are similar to us that like to get up and move and score like we do, really it's just a crapshoot at that point. I don't feel good about us getting stops at any point in time. Like if we play Florida again tomorrow, would I feel confident in picking us to win that game? Probably not. Doesn't change really what I thought of the teams. I feel like we can still beat any team on any day. but there's also games like you've seen where we can lose to almost any team, any game.
Yeah, I agree. But if you ask me, would I rather a game be a style like we played against Bama and Florida, or would we rather, slow it down and it be physical like Georgia? I'm taking the Bama Florida style, and I mean Bama's probably just a better team than us. Unfortunately, it sucks to say, but I still think this team's one of the best 8 to 10 teams in the country, and when we're on, we can beat anybody in the country.
I mean, we've got a couple games that we've got to prove it here. You got to, I mean, Vandy's obviously no slouch. You got to play them on the road, then Tennessee on the road, and then, like we said, Arkansas has been playing well. But if you don't think that's going to be the one game that this coaching staff actually gets the team prepared for, and we got to. It's a grueling schedule.
They can get prepared. They can't score. Boogie Flan's out like that. Yeah, they're done. I'm not accepting that like that's even a possibility. I think we beat them by 40.
I hope you're right, because I couldn't imagine that stupid smile on that car salesman's face as he walks off the floor after that.
That's fine. Then he can go celebrate it in the NIT. All right, and then last thing. So Caleb Wilson's going to announce tonight. Looks like it's probably flipped to Carolina. Just wanted to kind of get thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you've been sending me some stuff. Looks like the money's all in North Carolina's favor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think we had talked about this a couple of months ago when, he was originally saying, I'm going to commit in a week. I'm going to commit in 2 weeks. And it just kept getting pushed further and further down the line. And that's when all the chips were on Kentucky's side. And ever since, that kept, because I think he said like mid-November was what he was eyeing.
Yep.
And it just kept getting pushed further and further back. I really don't like the Cats' chances. I know him and Caden are very good friends. That's really, I feel like, the only chance we got is that maybe he looks at the system and thinks it's a better fit. But you got to remember, some of these kids, this money is something that they've never seen before.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then that kind of brought me to my last point. You see a lot of people online kind of using this as a, slam on Pope. Like, I mean, I still think Pope's done a really good job with recruiting, but also, like, this isn't 3 or 4 years ago where if you're missing out on these top level freshmen, you're done. Like, Pope's going to have a chance to go recruit the best players in college basketball, in 4 or 5 months. So it stinks, but I do think, if you believe what, Jack Pilgrim's put out there for KSR, and I do, like, it looks like Carolina's just coming in with an absurd amount of money. And then I forget who was reporting it, but somebody for On3 was talking about how Pope pretty much has told Caleb Wilson, like, yeah, you're going to play here, but we don't know how much. We can't promise you you're going to be, a starter going into next year. So if that's true, I'm in love with that after what we just witnessed with DJ Wagner and Justin Edwards. Like, play the best players, and if you miss out on a couple 5 stars because of it, you miss out.
Yeah, I do still think that we do need to get better recruiting classes in general going forward, because imagine this team but with elite athleticism. Imagine everything that we've, nitpicked and like harped on with this team would be fixed just from athleticism for the most part, and being able to guard, 1 through 5 like we can't right now. So I do want to see, obviously, Pope kind of lucked in a little bit this year with having 2 5-star guys from the state of Kentucky. I mean, that doesn't happen often at all. The 2 top guys in the state of Kentucky last year were Travis Perry and Trent Noah, a 4-star and a 3-star. So that's usually your typical Kentucky recruiting class. So I do think he needs to be able to go out and get that guy. He did with a Caden. But again, I'd still like to see, even though it's not going to be as much turnover as we're used to, I do still think he needs to get anywhere from like 4 to 5 freshmen. At least for this recruiting class, you have so many super seniors that'll be leaving.
Yeah. Well, he can go out and the other report that Jack Pilgrim put out is that everybody's planning on for him to come back. So, that's an elite level guard for a senior year. And then, how about Jaden Quinson's, or however you say his last name, Arizona. Yeah, once he leaves Arizona State at the end of the year, can we get him back?
I really mention how he's been playing at all. All I know is Kentucky looked very good in that recruitment, and he basically just said like.
Well, he was committed until Cal left.
Yeah.
And then he reopened it, but I mean, he's a guy that has to play 2 years of college basketball, and he's having a hell of a freshman year as a 17-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for the reunion, I guess you could say, of sorts. I mean, I'm here for it. Sign me up. But I do think in general we do have to start getting more of these recruiting wins, especially for this offseason, just because of how many guys have to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. It's obviously going to be a year-by-year thing, but, if the money's just doesn't make sense or guys demanding playing time, like, I do think there's so many options out there that you don't need to put all your eggs in one basket with a guy like, Caleb Wilson. It'd be great to have him. If he's here, I'm going to celebrate. If he goes to Carolina, he goes to Carolina. But I don't know if I would go to Carolina right now. I mean, Hubert Davis, I feel like, is probably going to get fired. If not this year, it'll definitely be next year. Hey,
things aren't looking that great out in Chapel Hill at the moment. So obviously, the money is talking when it comes to the Caleb Wilson recruitment. If he does commit to the Cats, obviously, we'll have a little bit of a breakdown on him for you guys. Yeah. If he does, drinks are on Boyers for me on Saturday night.
I don't know about that. That could get expensive.
Yeah, with that being said,
I already owe your girlfriend like 4.
True. All right, guys, follow us on TikTok, Instagram. I mean, we're on everything. X, Twitter, whatever you call it at this point. We're there. Still have no idea how to use it. I feel like a grandpa when I use Twitter. I don't know what's going on there. We're on Spotify, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube as well. Cats need a win on Saturday. Let's get back in the winning column. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.